everybody, I'm Clare Kenny. I'm GLAAD's Director of Youth Engagement, and I'm sitting down today with Lane Moore. Lane Moore is an award-winning stand-up comedian, musician, actor, and the author of the #1 best-selling queer inclusive book, How to Be Alone If You Want to and Even If You Don't. Lane, thank you so much for coming to our offices today.
Yeah, I'm glad I finally got to see them. This is awesome.
Yeah, great. So we really want to know what inspired you to tell this story. You've obviously been a storyteller your whole life, but this book is really special. So what inspired you?
I think I wanted to tell this story because I never really saw my story reflected in literature or media at all, I think, on many, many levels. I didn't really have the family that you were supposed to have growing up and have been alone, I would say, my entire life. And just in my day-to-day interactions and, even in like books that you read and things like that, even if it's a book about how hard someone's childhood was, the dedication is always like, to my loving family and my husband Greg, who like fed me Cheez-Its the whole time I was writing. It's just always like, we view this idea of like, so many stories about hardship or trauma were like, oh, my life was really hard for 1 year. And my life has been hard like since I was born and is still hard. Mm-hmm. And so I just felt very much like there's something wrong with me. And like, oh, what if your story doesn't have that? And I didn't have a rough childhood and now I magically have this partner and everything is solved and I magically have these wonderful friends and everything's fine. So I really wanted to write a story like that. And beyond that, someone said this to me. Someone who read the book wrote me and said that one of their favorite things about How to Be Alone was that a lot of queer stories that we hear are about having a rough childhood because you were queer. Mm-hmm. And I think that for so many people in the community, it's not that cut and dried. It's a lot of us come from really rough families and it had nothing to do with our queerness. And sometimes it's, exacerbated by that. And that's another factor. But I think that a lot of the stories that we've heard are just like, yeah, I had a rough childhood. My parents didn't like that I was queer. And while that's obviously valid and horrible, there's so many other stories that are told about having a rough childhood that may not have had something to do with that.
Right. And you're not necessarily conflating badness with queerness. And
totally.
I think your story is so great because it reflects on different elements of your life. It is so inclusive and aware of your own queerness and growing up as a young queer questioning person.
Yep.
And that the aspect of the childhood part I think is so relatable, especially to the LGBTQ community. So I wanted to talk about a review that you got from the Washington Post that said, "You turn a dismal childhood into laughs. Your story offers insights about the effects of childhood trauma and our capacity for resilience." How does your story speak to the larger LGBTQ community and audience of readers?
I think that there's an extra layer of aloneness in the queer community because, I talk a lot in the book about being attracted to my female best friend and just being so in love with her, on a friendship level, but another level, and what does this mean? And I know this isn't okay, and all of these things. And I think that if it was like a heteronormative relationship that was like socially sanctioned, if you're in love with your best friend, there's the like normal layer of like, oh no, like they don't know and this sucks. Mm-hmm. But when you're queer, there's an extra layer of loneliness in not really feeling seen by your friends, not really seeing your identity really in media. And even now, years later, I'm an adult now and I don't see my identity reflected that often very positively. So I think that there's that extra layer of just like, this isn't even allowed. Is something wrong with me? Would she reject me? Like there's just 30 layers of that. So I do think that kind of the feeling of feeling other and feeling like you're never going to find a space for yourself is something that I still feel to some degree. So I think that is, yeah.
Totally. And I think that exploration of intimacy and friendship is so well done in the book and something that I think is very relatable to queer people, but especially queer women. So why was it important to you to tell those kinds of stories in a book that's largely about love and romance?
Yeah, I wanted to tell a story about trying to find community, trying to find love, trying to find a place where you fit because you know, we're all told that we're all supposed to have like this great group of friends, you know, and even the queer community is shown that, you know, like look at the L word, like we're all supposed to have this group of queer friends who we see regularly, and we're all supposed to have, you know, this great partner. And I think social media and that stuff really can make you feel like everyone but you has that.
Right.
And you're just the broken weirdo in the corner who doesn't get anyone or anything. And you're just like, well, my friends kind of suck and I haven't dated anyone good in 5 years. Like, you know, you just, that wheel of comparison spins in your head. So it wasn't a like, I'm going to write about this. It was just that I wanted to tell this story through the lens of my own life stories. And by doing that, you know, just, I was trying to think about like what love and connection meant to me at different aspects of my life. And as a really little kid, this is what it meant to me. And, you know, in these grades, it meant my best friend. And that was my first love, if I really think about it. But, you know, unfortunately, so many queer people don't really get their first love in the classic way because it wasn't reciprocated. It wasn't appropriate. You weren't able to fully act on it, but it was a relationship. So, you know, just going into all of that gray area, because that's really it's really painful. It was very painful, but also really lovely because it really had all the elements of the classic, what we would see in like a heteronormative, like, you know, boy meets girl and, you know, like they're best friends first, but then they're in love. But then, you know, of course, the tragic queer ending of like society.
But you write about in the book TV shows and kind of obsession with media representation, which obviously has affected your career and your life and experiences with romance. But you mentioned a particular obsession with shipping TV characters.
Yeah.
And so for everyone who doesn't know what shipping is, I think Lane is the perfect person to explain.
Yes.
And then I would also love to hear if you have an all-time favorite LGBTQ ship that you've had or that is currently going on.
Yeah, okay, so shipping is when you're just way too invested in two characters in like a TV show or movie or comic book or anything getting together. Just like so invested that it's like you're jumping off your couch and like screaming at the TV. I've had a lot of them, like obviously like Alice and Dana, like, you know,
Number one.
R.I.P. back from the dead, excited. But they were just so cute, and it was like, you know, when they were super happy, and then it was just the saddest. That ending, it's like, you know why it had to end, whatever, I don't care, bring it back. But one of my, I'm like veto. But one of my favorites are, and my brain has been foggy the last couple days, so I'm not going to remember their names, but Fried Green Tomatoes. And like, you know, that book was like super queer, and it was just like, you know, straight washed into like, they're just really good friends who have a food fight. And it's like, no. But I watch them, and it's just like, it's just such a wonderful, like, it's just, I'm like, I don't know. I can't even, I'm trying to remember. Ruth and Iggy. I got it. Okay. Oh my God.
Okay, honestly, I'm not kidding. I watched Fried Green Tomatoes last night.
Really?
Last night. So I'm like, I know the names. I know
It's
exactly.
so-
The berries, the flowers.
Just all of it, and like Iggy in her suits wreck me. I can't watch it for too long. I just, yeah, we must move on. I can't, but yeah, I get so invested. And it's just such a bummer that, you know, so many of the queer relationships like weren't able to be realized like that. But I do love reading about those movies, and it's just like, well, yeah, we didn't want to show them like kissing or anything like that, so we have the food fight scene. You know, sex with two queer women is just like a food fight. I hate it.
Relatable, yeah.
So gross. So gross.
In your stand-up and Tinder Live and in the book, you talk about relationships and dating. And because today is Valentine's Day, we know people are probably watching who are LGBTQ and searching for love. So what sort of advice do you have for them?
Yeah, I mean, like, my advice is always date me, but I'm also terrified of people, so never mind, take it back. Which I feel like is a very queer stance on love and relationships. Like, yay, I'm single and ready. Also, leave me alone, I'm afraid. But, you know, I think that it's so tough. I mean, I think that that's one of the reasons that I wanted to write the book, because anybody who gives you like one piece of advice, there's a whole chapter in the book about how stupid a lot of the pieces of advice that we give people that are just passive. And I know everybody wants like one answer that will like solve your love life, but it's not, you know, so much of it is like about your childhood relationships and your relationship with your family and all this stuff that kind of set you up. And so, you know, I think that one thing that where people are usually pretty on it with is like therapy and being deeply introspective. And so, you know, I think that that's a lot of it is just like figuring out what your patterns are. And I talk a lot in the book about like love languages and things like that. Because I think for me, that's been really helpful. Like realizing that, you know, astrology is great and all, like it is, but I really think that like love languages and attachment styles, which I talk a lot about in the book, I think have so much more to do with it than anything else.
What's your number one love language?
Gift giving. That's it.
Really?
Not like I'm not with like how I receive. Absolutely. Yeah.
What
yeah.
do you
and
like
food.
to give?
I'm different. Like, cause my receiving, I like that. I like to feel taken care of in that way. So it's like, yeah, food and presents. But with other people, I'm really aces with words. I'm good with a compliment. And like gestures, like thoughtful gestures, like, and I'm very, you know, like I love a grand movie gesture. I haven't met anybody in so long I've like wanted to do these things for, but when I did, that was my love, like, and like, I love making like mixed CDs and writing songs for people and things like that. So I tend to be very, I don't know, like actions based in terms of things like that, I guess. Yeah. And just like thinking of things that they would maybe miss of like, oh, I know that this thing was stressing them out. I already did it. Yeah. Like just, I guess that's it. Yeah.
Well, a good gift would be How to Be Alone.
True. Yes. Give me my own book.
But yeah, I would love to hear. Obviously, there's so many amazing things to learn from the book, and I've enjoyed it so much, and I think it's brought solace to so many of the readers and the people all over the world who are learning from you and learning about your life now. What is one of the biggest hopes and takeaways you have for people who are reading or are thinking about reading How to Be Alone?
Yeah, I really wrote it in a way where it's like I'm definitely telling my story, but I'm trying to. It's a lot of things. I wrote a lot of things in this book that I wish that I could have heard from someone else. I wish that someone else could have told me. And it's really written as in a companion way where I like the idea of writing a book that while you're talking about patterns and loneliness and things like that, that you feel like I'm there with you and like keeping you company through this because, you know, most of my life, the things that have kept me company were movies and TV and books and music. And so everything I do really, you know, is with that in mind of that was the type of art that I wanted to make. That was the type of book that I wanted to make where it was like, you could feel a little bit less alone while reading the book. And that's my favorite piece of feedback that I get all the time, which is just like, I read the book and like, I didn't feel like I was so alone. I didn't feel like I was the only one who felt too much or gave too much or wanted a super romantic relationship or things like this. I wanted to write a book that validated all the ways that I felt really weird and, you know, too strange and different and all these things because, you know, now there's all these other people out there who are like, I'm the same way too. So there's this beautiful like connection that's been formed. So hopefully when you read the book, you are able to kind of connect with others better, maybe connect with yourself a little bit better, and then, you know, just realize that at the very least, there's one other weirdo out there who's felt these feelings. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for chatting with us. We are excited to have everyone know about the queer elements of this book and written by an amazing GLAAD award-winning author. Be sure to purchase How to Be Alone, available wherever books are sold, and make sure to check out the audiobook that Lane reads herself. Thank you.
Thanks.